The road home always looked the same in daylight. Narrow, cracked asphalt threading between empty fields, the grass tall and golden on either side. After school, with her backpack slung over one shoulder and her shoes scraping dust from the edge of the lane, 17-year-old Claire Halden used to hum under her breath and count the fence posts that lined the way. It was a routine she never thought much about. Just the sound of the wind, the squeak of her bag's zipper, and the far-off murmur of tractors that sometimes worked the distant farms. That autumn, however, something about the walk felt heavier. The sky had started dimming earlier, and clouds seemed to hang lower every day. The trees near the bend, the ones her classmates joked were haunted, were almost bare now, their branches twisted like black wire. Claire would try not to glance at them, but her eyes always wandered there as she passed, catching on the scraps of tattered bark that flapped like paper in the breeze. She lived nearly 3 miles from the school, on the edge of a thinning forest. Her father's truck had broken down weeks ago, and the bus route never came this far, so walking was the only choice. Just keep to the road, her father always told her. Don't go wandering through the woods. The first day the strangeness began was on a Thursday. The afternoon had turned gray and misty, and the air smelled faintly of rain and metal. Halfway home, Claire noticed the sound of another pair of footsteps behind her. They weren't quick, just steady, crunch, 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 matching her pace almost exactly. She glanced over her shoulder, expecting to see another student or maybe old Mr. Harris from the farmhouse near the crossroads. No one was there. She told herself it was just the echo of her own steps bouncing off the tree line, but the rhythm felt wrong. She tried stopping abruptly. For a moment, the silence pressed close around her. Then, one last crunch sounded a heartbeat after she'd stopped moving. A cold shiver slipped down her spine. When she reached home that evening, she didn't mention it to her father. He was in the barn fixing the tractor's engine, his hands black with grease. Her mother was at work in town, and the house felt hollow and dim. She did her homework at the kitchen table, listening to the distant creak of wood settling in the walls. That night, rain came. It pattered softly at first, then grew heavier, drumming against the tin roof. Claire woke up once in the middle of the night and thought she heard a faint knocking somewhere outside, slow, uneven, like knuckles on wood. She sat up listening. The knocking stopped, replaced by the whisper of rain again. By Friday, the weather had cleared, but the wind carried a damp chill. The teachers dismissed students early because a power outage had darkened half the classrooms. Claire started home at 3 o'clock, the sunlight thin and pale across the fields. She walked faster than usual, not wanting to be caught after dusk. At the halfway mark, the same place where she had heard the extra footsteps, she slowed involuntarily. There, near the ditch, stood an old-school satchel, its leather cracked and darkened with age. It looked half buried in mud, as if it had been there for years, but it hadn't been there yesterday. She crouched and brushed away a bit of dirt. A faded initials tag read, "MT Claire didn't know any MT at school." She straightened, glancing around. The fields were empty except for the swaying grass and a crow perched on a fence post, its feathers slick and black. "Hello?" she called, feeling foolish. The crow lifted its wings and flapped away. She decided to keep walking, but the unease stayed with her. That night, she dreamed of a girl standing on the road in the rain, holding the old satchel and staring toward her with hollow eyes. Saturday morning, Claire mentioned the bag casually to her father. He paused from wiping grease off his hands. "MT?" he repeated, frowning. "Could be that old missing kid from a few towns over." "That was back before you were born, though." He didn't elaborate, but she saw something uneasy flicker across his face. When she asked what happened, he only muttered, "People said she wandered off one afternoon and never came back." Sheriff figured she must have fallen in the river. That day, Claire went into town with her mother. At the grocery store, she overheard 2 elderly women talking near the produce aisle. "Same road, they say." "The one the Halden girl walks," one whispered. "Lord, don't talk like that," said the other. "That stretch is cursed. My brother saw lights in the trees back in '04. Claire pretended to examine apples, but her heartbeat quickened. She didn't believe in curses, but she couldn't stop picturing the satchel half buried in the mud. On Monday, when classes ended, clouds were already massing over the hills. The principal warned everyone to hurry home before the storm hit. Claire adjusted her backpack straps and started down the familiar road, watching the light fade from gold to bruised purple. The wind whipped her hair into her face, Somewhere behind her, a gate slammed. She turned quickly. The long road lay empty. She began to walk faster. After a few minutes, she realized she could hear the footsteps again, faint but distinct, syncing with hers. She spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing except rows of skeletal trees and swirling dust. "Stop it," she muttered to herself. "It's just in your head." She started jogging. The footsteps quickened too. At the bend near the woods, she saw movement, something pale slipping between the trees. It could have been mist. It could have been an animal. But it looked, just for a second, like a sleeve fluttering in the wind. Claire broke into a run. The sky opened with a roll of thunder, rain pouring down. She reached her driveway soaked and gasping, slammed the door behind her, and stood trembling in the kitchen. Her father asked what was wrong. She almost told him, but stopped. The words felt too heavy. That night, she left her bedroom light on. The window rattled softly in the wind, and once she thought she saw a faint outline on the glass, a handprint smeared with rain. She blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, before school, she decided to prove to herself there was nothing to fear. She left early, before sunrise, determined to walk the road in daylight and check the ditch where she'd found the satchel. Mist hugged the ground, gray and shifting. Dew clung to the weeds. The field stretched silent and empty. When she reached the spot, the satchel was gone. Only a faint depression remained in the mud, like something heavy had been dragged away. Her stomach turned. She looked toward the woods. The fog there seemed thicker, almost pulsing with its own light. For the rest of that week, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. In class, she caught herself glancing at the window, half expecting to see someone standing just beyond the glass. She stopped humming on the walk home. Even the birds seemed to avoid that stretch of road now. By Friday, she had made up her mind. She'd ask her friend Maggie to walk with her. But Maggie's family car picked her up that afternoon, leaving Claire to start the walk alone again. The sun was setting when she reached the woods. A chill wind swept through the trees, carrying a faint whisper. She thought it might be the branches rubbing together, but it almost sounded like words. "Keep to the road." Her father's warning echoed in her head. Then she saw something at the edge of the trees, a flicker of movement, a flash of pale fabric. The same shape she'd glimpsed before. This time it stepped closer. Claire froze. It was a girl. Younger than her. Wearing a school uniform faded with age, her hair tangled, her shoes caked with mud. In her hand, she held the old satchel marked MT. Claire's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" she whispered. The girl didn't answer. She only raised her eyes, gray, hollow, and pointed toward the dark curve of the road ahead. Claire turned her head instinctively, just for a second. When she looked back, the girl was gone. Only the satchel remained on the ground. Claire stumbled backward, heart pounding. She didn't touch it. She ran the rest of the way home, tears stinging her eyes. That night, she couldn't sleep. When she closed her eyes, she saw the gray-eyed girl standing at the roadside, water dripping from her hair. She heard the faint echo of those mismatched footsteps behind her. The next morning, she found muddy footprints on the porch, small, bare, leading up to the door and then away again.